Hey landlord, my name is Eric Worrell and I work for RentPrep, a tenant screening company, and today we're talking about tenant screening in the state of California. I want to cover a few topics that you should consider and know before you get into tenant screening, and then also how you can get a bunch of free resources that can help you as you try to find the best tenant for your rental property. So, first things first, I want to cover just a few things that are specific to California, a couple points. Rental application fees. Not every landlord charges a rental application fee. We do highly suggest that you do. The reason you want to charge an application fee is that it lets that tenant applicant know that you're running a background check. You want them to know that. A lot of times the weaker tenant applicants, maybe they have a murky past, they won't even bother applying because they know that something's going to come up and they're not going to get it and they don't want to waste the $30 to apply. So they'll move on to the next rental unit. A very easy way to just screen out some bad potential applicants is just by charging that application fee and letting them know you're going to run a background check. As far as application fees go in California, as of 2012, the most you can charge is $49.50. Right now we're putting a link on the screen, dca.gov. You can find this on our blog post that we wrote on tenant screening in California. Great resource. You can really dive into the nitty-gritty of tenant screening in California and get a lot of information there too. Speaking of the blog post, you can get to that through the description of this video, and we have a bunch of free resources for you on there that you can grab. You don't have to submit an email or anything like that. You can just download them and they're free for you to use. And one of those is a rental application form. A little tip with your rental application form when you're doing tenant screening is to institute a no blank space policy. This means exactly like what it sounds. When somebody hands you an application form back and it's not completely filled out, you just say, "I'm sorry, I need you to completely fill this out before I'll accept it." And then even if it's awkward, you just hand it back to them and wait for them to give it back to you. What we found here at RentPrep from screening tenants for 10 years now is that there is a direct correlation between people who don't fill out the application completely and issues with their background check. A lot of times the reason that people aren't giving all those details and they're omitting details is because they know that there's going to be something that comes up that might not be flattering for them. So one of the easiest things you can do to help yourself out when you're screening tenants for your rental is just to institute a no blank space policy on your rental application form. Now, if you already have a rental application form and you're thinking about running a background check on a tenant, just make sure that there's a section on there that gives signed consent to run a background check. On the screen right now, you can see what we have here at RentPrep is on the second page of our rental form, and this is where we get signed consent from that tenant applicant. If you don't have that, you're opening yourself up to some serious liability because you can't legally run a background check on a tenant applicant without that signed consent. So just make sure that you have that. One other thing I want to make note of is that if you are charging a rental application fee, is that you're going to want to keep that money separate from any kind of security deposit that you end up taking from a tenant. You don't have to refund a rental application fee. It is your right as a landlord to keep that as part of the process of screening tenants. But once you have that money, make sure that it is in a separate account from your security deposit. The reason you want to keep money from a security deposit in a separate account is if you ever do have an issue with a tenant down the line, say you withhold some of the money from their security deposit when they move out, if they want to make a stink of things and they want to bring you to court, they're going to want to see at court that you have that money in a separate account. So always make sure that you have your security deposit money in a separate banking account. Speaking a little bit further on security deposits in the state of California, it's kind of interesting. You can charge up to 2 months rent for a security deposit for an unfurnished apartment. Now, if you have a furnished apartment, you can charge up to 3 months rent, and if it has a waterbed, you can go up to 3.5 months rent. Now, chances are that we're approaching 2017 here. You probably don't have a waterbed in that apartment, but I thought it was just a fun fact to throw in. So again, hopefully you learned a few things from this video, and if you check out our links on the screen right now, we have a tenant screening guide video that you can check out using the game Guess Who, and then also I highly suggest going to our blog post on tenant screening on our website, and that's where you can get all of your free forms and even more helpful hints on screening tenants in the state of California. Hopefully you find that perfect tenant for your rental. Take care.